Welcome, hello, and we are going to be talking about science and sanity. And it's not science versus sanity, it is science and sanity, and how we're going to
Mm.
achieve faster than light travel. Does that sound like a fun show to you, Alex?
Bring it on, Sylvia. Bring it on.
Welcome to the Energy Show. Here we discuss the energy solutions to the problems of the modern age. It's all about emotional well-being. It's all about energy. And our happiness matters. Oh, what a wonderful topic.
Yay! Welcome, everyone. Wow, I think this is Energy Show number 5. Awesome.
Wow. The magic number 5. Yeah,
Mm.
so I can't wait to get going with this topic. This is a topic that obviously I have played with and enjoyed my entire life. My entire life. And it's such a big ball of worms, the topic of science. And just especially in recent times, as the internet sleuths have started to question some research papers. And it turns out that a whole lot of them are completely fabricated and duplicated, and they never actually did the experiments that they said they did. And oh my goodness, it's like, oh, and plagiarism, of course, because of AI, we can now spot plagiarism. And yeah, it's bit of a ball of worms at the moment, as is everything else. But I'm really looking
Oh,
forward to
I'm going
this.
to defend science, Sylvia.
Oh, I
I'm
love
going to defend it.
now.
I
Look,
love science. The
I love.
idea that we are all standing on the shoulders of giants, that we all can build on the research of other people,
Oh, don't get
the
me
fact we
started
can,
on the shoulders of giants. You're just
the fact,
you are just trolling me now, aren't you? You're just trolling me. You're trying to get me angry and start ranting about Yerkes and Hobbes from 1908 who tortured rats with electricity. And those giants and the entire modern stress management industry is standing still on the shoulders of those two guys in New York in 1908 who were torturing rats because they didn't have anything better to do and came to totally the wrong conclusions about how stress works. So you just wound me up there, haven't you? Done that deliberately, haven't you?
oh, I still defend science. You know, the wonderful man of Darwin
Oh, come on.
realizing that evolution is undeniable, and
Oh,
I'm going to say I'm going to posit as well that the Earth is a sphere or close to a sphere. It's not flat, and I think that science has done a fantastic job of proving that case.
oh, fucking, that's so funny. Well, I think we really must make a distinction. Theory and practice. The theory and practice of science, of religion, of politics, of democracy, of communism, that there is somewhat of a divergence in having these wonderful ideas of these sort of systems and then people being allowed to play with them. And then what you get usually is a giant ball of worms. And that's part of the fascination with the human race. But I would like to say I like the idea of science, the idea, the concept. The concept of science is really cool because the concept is that you observe something or you notice something and then you go, huh, how does that work? And then you make a hypothesis. This could possibly work because there are ghosts in the room. And then
Hmm.
you design a test to see if that you can make that happen, whatever it is that you want to make happen. And then you tell other people you try that as well. And if it works for you as well, then we begin to say, okay, I didn't just hallucinate this whole thing. It actually really happens. It's actually real. We're going to get a little tail of actual reality, absolute, and put that in our Lego box. And if we do that long enough, and if enough of us do that often enough, then we might move towards some kind of objective, real truth. And I love that. I love that idea. I think it's a great idea.
I love the idea of a real truth.
Yeah, the real truth.
The real
Reality, Yeah, I
Which
call
is
it
different to, say, for example, a Trump truth or a Boris Johnson truth. A real truth is definable, and the experiment can be replicated, so
That's
that
correct. Yeah.
we can ascertain the results ourselves. That's fascinating, isn't it? And it really does lead science to have a open source attitude to research.
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's the idea. But then we have theory and we have practice. And so, what we have in practical science is people with small egos trying to make their way, greedy people who do research and do anything just to get the money, and give any answer. Like that research program that I was involved with from that dog food company who wanted to prove that if you feed dogs that food, then their behavior improves. And we just basically were paid to provide crappy statistics and to prove that point.
Mm.
That's the practicality of science. I don't want to even get into the big topics of the day of trust the science. Let's stay well away from all of that. But
Well, I'd say science has always been a pure concept.
yes,
But
so has
I
communism.
would say that science as is a concept is pure. Unfortunately, any time that a human in a human being society
Yeah, that's what I
interacts
said.
with a pure concept, that's when the biases were introduced. Case example, we're talking about 500, 600 years ago, and there was very strong bias from, the Catholic Church on scientists.
Oh
For
yeah.
example, like Darwin was still a believer in the idea of the creation myth, and how could he have survived in his world if he had decided, you know what, I'm going to reject my religion and just
Well,
go
that's
just go with my own scientific eyes.
yeah,
Yes,
and
so I
so
think bias has
you
always been
go
around.
yeah, so here then you go to um any doctor who clearly sees that this vaccination stuff is bullshit and just goes, well, how can I possibly stand up against that? I'll lose my money, I'll lose my job, everything. But leaving the corruption out of it, and while I'm here, I'd just like to say, when I am the king of the world, I will make any act of corruption, no matter how small, punishable by death, by public execution in the public square, so all the little children can see what happens to people who engage in corruption. Any kind of corruption, any industry, any context, murder, instant execution. And I believe that might be the way forward for humanity to actually make some of these pure ideas, like we count that capitalism or communism, science, come to life and actually
Harsh,
function
harsh,
as they
Sylvia.
should. Well,
Harsh.
sometimes
It's
you've
so
got to
funny,
put your
isn't it?
foot
When you
down.
we could really go into a rabbit hole about corruption. You
Oh,
know,
God, yeah.
is
Corruption
is
is the
corrupt
death of everything.
is corruption paying for your child to go to a nicer school than your neighbours?
Yeah, that depends on whether you are taking money from Big Pharma. But let us move on at this point
Yeah.
and
I mean,
move on to
it's
something
interesting,
else,
isn't it?
because this is,
I mean, I'm gonna, I'm not religious in any way, but the teachings that I heard of Jesus were that he wanted to put people directly in touch with God, because
yes,
that way you don't get the mess of a human religion where you
right.
have like hierarchical structures, popes and bishops and, and priests and and people that have been devout for 10 years versus the 5 years and the 1 years and
I mean, the corruption,
so
the corruption of priests goes back at least as far as we know to the old Egyptians, where you could buy your way into the afterlife by paying a priest a bit more or slipping them
mm.
a few bars of gold here and there. And let's not go into that. Let's go and try and get to our topic here, science and sanity. Now, we have agreed that science is a good idea and that we like science. I like science a lot.
Right, put your hand up if you like science. That's 100%. The quorum has been made.
Yeah, we like science. I have tried to be very scientific with my own personal research. I've had some ideas, made a theory, then I made a pattern, and then I gave this pattern to lots of other people to try and see if it would work, their feedback, how they would feel about it. And so in that way, I have done my own science as honestly and as uncorrupt as you possibly can. And so I'm quite happy with that. But so to lead us into this topic of science and sanity, I brought out the modern energy chart, and it's been here with us, and it's been our companion while we were talking. And so, what is the general idea of where you do science on the modern energy chart?
Well, around 3, isn't it? So 3 is the having an idea for an experiment. Plus 5 is doing the research, and plus 8 is the validating your work against your thoughts that you had, whether they be true or false. And plus 10 is when your research is then published in an amazing paper, and the news organizations are on the phone, and your family love you more than they did the week before, and
Now, this is
and your
arguable.
colleagues are praising you.
This is arguable. From my point of view, the plus 10 there is the moment when I got the original idea. To me, that's the eureka
Ah,
moment.
no, the
That's
original
when you run
Eureka.
through the
No,
state.
I'm gonna.
That's when you run through the
I
streets naked and shout, "Oh my God, I got it! Eureka!
No, you're
Yay!"
thinking that as time 0, Sylvia. I'm saying that was in your mind a lot sooner. I think before the clothes come off and the front door is opened, and the street is ran through, you can backtrack that. That's level of inspiration without any kind of prior thought
Oh
or
no,
asking
of
your
course,
energy
of
mind
course.
for something
This is
like
true.
that.
I'll grant you this.
And
It's
that
that
probably happened at plus 3.
this is true. This is true. I grant this. Now, Archimedes in his bath there, he was really thinking about how the hell he could figure out how much gold is in the crown. And he really was thinking about it for a long time. And I have to admit, yes, I tend to think about things for a long, long time. And then the eureka happens after the research and thinking and assembling more and more and more information and data and making connections. And then it's like putting that last little grain of sand on top of your hill. And then you have that absolute chaotic movement into something new, this expansion. Yeah, so I'm going to go with that. But you know what I think, in common knowledge, in common ideas about such things, and this is something that we want to start changing, is this really unfortunate idea that you're supposed to do science without emotions. That scientists are supposed to be Spocks, Mr. Spock to the younglings from Star Trek, who had no emotions. And he was the main scientist on board of the Starship Enterprise. That science, that emotions get in the way of science. And I agree that negative emotions get in the way of science, which may immediately make us think, hey, wait a minute, didn't you just say that these scientists, they're grabbing for money and they're fighting, they got these fragile egos, and that gets in the way of doing clean science. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. That is true. But 0 isn't the answer here. Having no emotions isn't the answer to good science.
Well, it
No,
leads to bad science.
it
I
does.
posit that the higher you are on the energy chart, the less likely you are to deceive, to provide fraudulent results, to
Yep.
overplay your hand. There is a thing called publication bias, which is an interesting one. And publication bias is when you put your research paper to this esteemed journal, is that they are more likely to publish your work if your hypothesis matches your conclusion. So you think that gravity's falling, you do your experiment, and and you work out it's true, and you're more likely to be published than, say, for example, there's a little variance left or right, and you notice that and spot that, and actually it doesn't always work, and there's some off cases. As soon as which is, I mean, that is another tenement of science, isn't it? That if you have a hypothesis and you're proven wrong, then that is as equally valuable.
Yes. Oh,
Interesting, isn't it? It's
yeah, it should be. And there is, for anybody who's interested in that, science really is in crisis. It really is. There is so much going on with that right now. It's a very sad thing. But we're talking about the structure and basics here once more. And so yes, if you want to be um, not just a good scientist, but a decent human being, because there seems to be the same thing, one and the same thing. Being a good scientist and being a decent human being seems to kind of go hand in hand on some level. You know
well,
that,
it's the bedrock, isn't it? Being a decent human being.
yeah, not
I don't
cheating,
believe
not
in karma,
stealing.
Sylvia Hartman.
You don't
I
believe
don't
in
believe in
karma.
I don't believe in karma.
I don't know what that
Yet
even is supposed to be.
the idea that we're judged and our future lives are some kind of punishment or praise, depending on how we lived here right now. I think that would be more of a, I
Oh,
don't know,
shall we just
something you
we
scare the
will
children with, shall we say, like,
I tell you what,
heaven and
we'll
hell.
discuss that in a future show because that's really interesting because I have thoughts.
Mm.
I have many thoughts. I apologize for having all these many thoughts. But
Yeah.
going back to science and sanity. Now, it is my belief, my experience that the higher you are on the modern energy chart, the better work you do.
Mm.
Simple. And that the lower you are, and especially when you get below zero, that you start making mistakes and errors. And in science, and especially if we're going with statistics and such, which seems to be the only measure of anything these days, then you are going to make mistakes, and these mistakes creep in. And then, if your students are stressed, or the next generation is stressed of those giants, stressed giants standing on the shoulders of other stressed giants, then you get this thing whereby back in the day we used to make photocopies, and if you make photocopies of photocopies of photocopies, eventually they become completely illegible and
Yeah,
useless.
Chinese whispers.
Yeah, you know. And so yeah, standing on the shoulders of giants once more is a problem if those giants weren't very high in
Mm.
energy, because then you can, there is a direct correlation, ladies and gentlemen, scientists out there, please repeat this experiment if you will. Take some
Mm.
people, put them in different energy states, and have them do a little task like copying some typing or something, and see how many mistakes they make. It directly correlates to their energy states, and it's what's that called? It's a, logarithmic scale. The more stressed they
Mm.
become, the more mistakes, until they can't even do that thing anymore, and it's not a mistake; it's just a complete mess at the end.
Well, isn't it? This is the problem with modern psychology in particular,
Yeah.
where they are essentially, most psychology research papers feature trials on psychology students because they're the only people they can find to complete these on the cheap. So you've got the mismatch between running your psychology test on, I don't know, psychology students in California and psychology students in Manchester in England.
So
So
these are 19-year-old psychology students.
mm,
All 19-year-old students are a bit weird, but perhaps we need a weirdness scale. On the weirdness scale, the psychology students are pretty much off the chart. So using their
oh,
results,
I'm going to
whatever
defend psychology students. Thanks very much, Sylvia Hartman. But
I'm
you're right.
using,
It's a replication crisis, is what they're calling it, isn't it? Where it turns out that a whole bunch of these research papers can't be replicated.
yeah, we could
Mhm.
do this for hours, and so let's just not. So can we both agree on the fact that the higher you are on the modern energy chart, the more likely that you're going to be doing good science?
Yeah. Yeah, good
Right.
science. And I'm looking at, I'm thinking about past teachers as I look at the modern energy chart right now as well. You've got, oh yeah. Anyway, I don't need to
Yeah,
say
you're
any more on that.
right. No, you're right. That people who are the teachers that I liked or that inspired me or that made me pay attention were the ones who were really into it.
Mm,
I had a chemistry teacher at school who was just he loved his experiments. He loved setting fire to stuff and making it
mm.
explode and go bang and turn green. And he just loved this. He used to go
Yeah, yeah.
and I loved being in his class. I loved learning from him. I thought it was just wonderful when a teacher actually loves what they're doing and possibly even loves the
Mm,
children they're teaching this to. Wouldn't that be a nice thing? So yeah, the transference of the love of science is why a person should want to become a scientist, right?
mm.
And the word
Yeah,
love
it's
is
interesting.
only available in the on the positive side of the modern energy chart.
Yeah, well, it's love and an absence of love, eh?
Exactly.
Attention and the absence of attention. I think it's also worth talking about, and I mentioned this, I think, in the last energy show, how I felt like the way that people arrive at getting a psychiatric or diagnosis
Oh God, yeah.
is firstly a lengthy process. It's something that is seen as a prize to be gained rather than a actual diagnosis in itself. And what I find really interesting, this is also comes back with the bias of a researcher, is that a good test, a good scientific test, should not influence the observed. The observer should not influence the observed, and that is very, very difficult to do. Even if you have a simple test, like saying, I don't know, think what was who were the, I don't know, the countries fighting against each other in World War II? Just a simple question that some people may or may not have an answer to. But again, if you stress them out before that by having a nervous researcher, well, it's this, no one's died yet, but fingers crossed. Versus, confident. Oh la la, yeah, this is so good. Yeah, I can't wait to tell you this question. It's going to be incredible. Both
Here,
of these have
yes,
altered the observed. The observers have altered the
yes,
observed, and I find that really interesting. It's one of the reasons why I like bee studies so much, Sylvia Hartman,
yeah.
because the bees don't need to be interacted with. They don't need to be, I don't know, hurt or restrained, or you could just quite easily watch the bees and
Alex,
go about
let
their
me tell
daily
you,
business.
let me tell you something that will blow your mind. The bees know you're watching.
I was waggle dancing for an hour. None of them paid a blindest bit of notice. Thank you very much.
Okay, so science and sanity. Now, the thing to remember here, ladies and gentlemen who are watching, the thing to remember is that we do our best science at +10 and nowhere else. There's nowhere else. And that sanity, the greatest amount of sanity, is also to be found at +10. Even though to somebody who's way down at -5 or 6, it might seem completely incomprehensible what a person who is at +10 is actually saying, because they literally can't understand what that person is saying to them, which is extraordinary. And that's also a story for another day. But so I wanted to talk about faster than light travel and how we can make it so that, oh God, can we start with the flying cars, please?
Sylvia Hartman, I have mentioned the bees, therefore I give you flying cars and faster of light travel.
Ah, when I was a squirt, I was promised there would be flying cars. I was promised that when I grow up, there'd be flying cars. When I was about 4, I was promised this. 14, 24, 34, 44, 54. 64, 65. Where are my flying cars? Where are
Mm,
they, science? Where? Where are they? What the
mm,
hell? What have you been doing for the last 60 years? What have you been
yeah.
doing? You bloody hell. You've made mobile phones. Yay. No, never mind. Or the geneticists. Why don't we have little friendly teddy bears in many different colors that children can interact with? We can have as pets rather than having to have cats and dogs. You know, what is going on with science? There's so many things that I want and that would be fun and that'd be really good for us. And where are they? It's like weird how they've been studying weird stuff that
Mm,
the other thing on that topic, and that happened, God, that happened again 40 years ago. Somebody said to me in the town center, I was passing a person who was shaking the tin for cancer research 40 years ago. And I went and was about to put a little bit of money in there, and that person said, "Oh, don't bother. They're making, they've been doing this since 1920. They've got billions and billions and billions, and they're not doing anything with it. They're not fixing any cancer." And that was, as I said, that's 40 years ago that happened to me. And I
mm.
keep seeing the cancer shaking tins and the runs for breast cancer. And I keep remembering that incident and thinking, yeah, well, how come we're still using radioactive weirdness and poisons that make people's hair fall out? How's that happening? Where's the research in
Yeah.
that?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
these and many
40
other
years, there
things.
has been progress, Sylvia.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Cancer treatment and early diagnosis. And we also have
Oh, early
artificial intelligence.
diagnosis, right?
Artificial intelligence, yeah, yeah. Like, for example, artificial intelligence can scan what are they called, mammalian grams or something like that. I can't remember, but scans of tissue anyway, and they can detect cancerous
Well, look,
tissue much better than humans can. But what I would say is going to be a huge issue with this is that medical agencies like the BMI are do not like change, and the thought of a technology coming and putting doctors out of business, which is a ridiculous concept, it will be so resisted by the medical organizations. I'm fully expecting strikes in the next 5 to 10 years.
wow. Yeah,
Mm.
so the flying cars. And then somebody said the other day, I heard that faster than light travel is impossible. And I'm like, oh yeah, really? Really? And I thought to myself, damn it, I wish I'd not spent my entire life studying people and their emotions. And I'd taken up physics as a child. I guarantee you I would have found some stuff that isn't right and where some foundational mathematics aren't correct or something. I'm not saying that I would have invented faster than light travel, but then I had this amazing thought, and that was two star stories. But I'll focus on the second one of those. No, I can't. I have to tell the first one first. When I was like the first week I was out as a tapping person in 1998. I went to see a golf professional on a golf course who had a problem of some kind. I know nothing about golf, less than nothing, nothing at all. So as he's explaining his problem to me, it's literally just blah, 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 because I don't understand what he's saying to me. I don't know the words, I don't know the context, but I'm hearing him going blah, 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 blah. And then he went blah, 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 blah. And I said, just wait a minute, what did you just say there? And he said, oh, and I said, oh, that's where it is. That's where the problem is. This is an energy blockage. So let's, move this energy blockage forward. And so he does that. I still don't know what he's talking about. Then he goes, woohoo, this is great. I feel so much better. He runs and gets his golf stick and gets a ball and starts hitting it with this particular golf stick. That is a particular kind of golf stick, God knows. And he's like, yeah, this is working now. I can finally do this thing. And I'm like, yay, well done. And that was great. And it was really good because it's just energy. I don't need to know what is going on in order to notice when the guy goes in the middle of his telling me what the problem is. That's where the blockage is. And 4 years later or so, I had a client who was a math professor at a university in India who also had a problem. And he was also telling me things that I had literally no idea what he was talking about. None. Blah, 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 blah. But the same thing. And there, the golf pro came into my head and I said, oh, I don't have to know what the problem is. All I have to do as an energy person is notice where the blockage is and then help that person get over the blockage. And so that made me think, wow, there must be some intelligent, talented physicists out there or pure mathematicians who are trying to solve some very complicated problem and been trying to probably solve it for years and they can't get any traction on it, can't get any further on it. I can sit there with them and pat them on the back and do some emo, do some tapping, do possibly some Project Sanctuary with them. And they're going to go and have that, whoa, what we used to call a healing event, but now we call it like a threshold shift. They go, whoa, now I know what's, it's down there. There is the formula that's not working. Woohoo. And they were actually, after being stuck for I don't know how many years, they can actually make some progress in their own research. And I've got shivers with excitement. If we could actually, yeah, help the best scientists there move forward, and many of them, and they can start talking to each other about their discoveries, not in that bitchy, like, oh, I'm better physicist than you, but like in a proper cooperation in a group bubble, which you get with high energy people. Then I
Mm.
believe humanity can achieve faster than light travel quicker than we thought we could.
Mm. I like the story of Albert Einstein, who met his wife at a university, and she was an incredible mathematician. And really, she should have her name on all his research papers. But she was
Yes.
quite
No
modest
problem.
and said, "Oh, I have his name, I have his surname. That's enough."
Ah,
So yeah, I mean, we can talk about group bubbles as well as being
yes.
a good thing for when one person can't solve something alone, just to talk about it out loud with someone else or hear their ideas. Or there's this idea in groups, in human groups, is that if you ask 100 humans to estimate how many marbles there are in a jar, each one of them is probably going to be massively off. But when you average out the all 100 humans, it's actually remarkably accurate. So
Oh, can we do
that's
an
quite an
experiment?
interesting one.
Can we do an experiment with 100 people and the marbles in the jar? And take them through the modern energy start off by making them really depressed.
Mm,
Ugh, and make them guess how many marbles are in the jar. Then make them angry, tell them they're
mm,
fools and whatever. And then ask them how many marbles there are in the jar and keep going up the modern energy chart until you have them in this big group bubble.
mm.
I'm going to bring our chart back.
Well, I'm going to also say statistically, when a person is asked to guess how many marbles there are in a jar or any quantity of anything, they, on average, a human being would underestimate than overestimate, which is
Interesting.
quite interesting. So everybody out there watching this, if you ever see marbles in a jar, add 10%.
But we don't know that yet. All the experiments with marbles in a jar need to be rerun and taking the people's energy states into consideration who were engaged in that experiment. Because at the moment, what we have is that we've got 100 people and some are miserable, some are happy. This is not a congruent group to be testing. This
Mm.
is not a clean experiment. This is a mess. And so the results are a mess likewise, and you're not learning
Humans
anything.
are a mess.
They're not. They're really structural and predictable.
No, on a scatter graph of stress levels, they're definitely a mess.
That's only because they don't know about this thing. But let's go
Mm,
back to the group bubbles because in the terms of faster than light travel, which we want to achieve, and I want to do my bit to make that happen. because I think that'd be groovy. We could go to comets and take their water and diamonds and stuff,
Mm.
asteroids. That'd be so cool. Anyway, this group bubble thing, when you look through science history, you find that there are often groups of people who have developed a massive leap forward in the field or even created an entire field. People who worked together. And when people do that in high energy states, they become more than the sum of their parts. Their thinking expands and they start to think differently. It's like you're plugging into like a SETI system where you're all of a sudden thinking with the other people's heads as well as your own. And I find that happens when in training groups sometimes. It's really remarkable. But
Mm.
so if you've got 5 physicists that actually like each other, are high energy, are really excited, they love what they're doing, and they're working on a problem together, that's when some real, what seems like magic, but magic
Mm.
is only the science that we haven't discovered yet, happen.
Yeah.
So, and we can help physicists in groups get into a couple bubble by raising their energy, showing them how to do that, how to drop their shields a little, be happier
Mhm.
together, remember why they love physics so much, remember star memories, how when they knew they were going to be able to solve the questions of the universe, that they could do this thing, this magical thing with numbers and stuff that I don't know
Mm.
what that is, but I don't need to know because they do, it's inside of them. And we can enable our scientists to do much better work. And I think that's amazing. And that's a fact.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I'd an interesting topic is also groupthink, and a few years ago I went on a drone training course, and in the UK they couldn't be bothered to make a drone course, so what they did was they took the one for commercial pilots of planes, and then just stripped out stuff about being on a runway, and then put a thought, there you go, job done. So obviously they had this concept for groupthink for when you're on on an aircraft, and that the more people that are making a decision, then the more overconfident it can be. I'd suggest actually that that is the more people making a decision, the greater the energy, especially in a stressful situation.
Yes.
Therefore, they're like, well, if I go down, we're all going down together. Hurrah! Which I found a
No,
fascinating concept.
um, there is one of the big problems with the Western civilization is this complete falling back on the individual. That the individual has to do everything themselves, that they have to achieve targets all by themselves. They've got to be the one man standing on the top of the mountain with a flag and to get all the glory, to get all the acclaim, to get their name into the book of history and not have to share it with anybody else. This is a big problem, a big, big
Mm,
problem in the Western world that goes back such a long time. You mentioned Einstein's wife. She knew bloody well she could have her name on the papers, but then that all the other men would laugh at him for being a cuck and having his wife bloody dominate him or something. And so
mm,
the only way that he could be a big man and a big scientist was because his name was the only name on the paper. And
mm.
that's a general problem that goes to families and relationships and all sorts of problems, but especially to this idea of the mastermind group, of people coming together in order to solve a problem
Mm.
or to create something new. That's so awesome. And this shouldn't be a competition. As long as it's still a competition, it's not really a group bubble yet. It's
Well, I mean, the communists certainly like the idea of us all working towards a common good.
yes,
In
and they're not wrong
reality,
about that, and we should, and it's a good idea. That's a good idea, like science is a good idea. And at
yes,
the
just
same
put
time,
humans into the model and it all breaks down because humans
exactly.
naturally want to be better than other humans. What they
I
want
don't
to,
know. I don't know. No, no, Alex, this
they
isn't true.
hierarchically structure themselves.
They might have done this for a long time, but this is not. I don't believe that that is true. I don't think that people want to be better than everybody else. I don't.
I've seen in my dance club, that a lot of men start going to dance, learn to dance. But the thought of being right at the bottom of the male pecking order puts a lot of them off. A lot of them, they can't have their pride dented in such a way. It's different for the women dancers, because the beginner ladies
Ah,
and
okay.
advanced lady dancers always get someone to ask them to dance, regardless.
I tell you
But
what we're going to. I tell you what we're going to discuss next week. We're going to do men versus women next week. I can be the
all right,
women, and
am I
you can.
team man, or am I team woman?
Perhaps we could switch halfway through and find out what happens when we do. That'd be quite
Uh,
interesting. So going back to science and sanity. Yeah. This factor, the human factor in science and in communism and in capitalism and in religion and in politics and in business and everywhere else, this human factor is the problem in all of the human equations, isn't it? And that's the problem that I've been trying to solve. This is the problem I've been trying to solve, how we solve this. So that it doesn't always, that these beautiful civilizations don't go tits up again. And the dark ages rule us again, and we have to crawl our way back up. And in the year 4005, scientists start torturing rats again with electricity. And it goes round and round and round. So I think that adding this simple fact that, yeah, we do have an energy body, and even though you guys can't measure it yet, it's there, it's real, it manifests itself, it kicks off, it does this thing that we can measure. Let's be scientific about this. Let's please, let's have a science of energy, love and logic, bring them back together. That was my thing. And I would love it if there are any scientists out there who have been working on a problem and they just can't get any further. And it's like they've run into a block. They've tried everything they know to get out of it. They can't fix it. And this is really depressing. And their research isn't going forward. Real scientists, in other words. And it doesn't matter which field you're in or what the speciality is, or that you feel that you can't possibly explain what the problem is to a person like myself who has no clue what a golf stick is. You still can work with an energy practitioner, with a star therapist, to help you get over the blockage that you have and have your own, oh, now I know what my next step's going to be. I'm not saying that somebody's going to be doing a bit of tapping or emo or star therapy, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, yeah, I know how to do faster than light travel. Not saying that. But I'm saying that they are doing certain research paths, and if they're blocked at the end of that, they can unblock that with modern energy work. There is a really good chance that after the session they will go, right, now I know what my next step's going to be. They're going to be re-energized. We got our little man with a shovel. They're going back to work because they're not just completely blocked anymore. And I believe that if all the scientists in the world, working at all the universities in the world on their various problems, and there are many, many weapons, they're all working on weapons. Nobody's working on anything else. Anyway, scientists working in their laboratories on their various things, if they had a way to do that and move faster past their blockages that they're having, that they're finding in their research, that as humanity, we could move forward a lot quicker. And I might get my flying cars, who knows? But we also might find a way towards faster than light travel and many other
Better
things.
humans equals better science.
Yeah, and the humans are already good. We just need to activate them a little bit more.
Mm.
It's not like we need
Sylvia,
to. Yes.
what for people that may have not heard of the term star therapist, how would you describe what a star therapist is to them?
Best, easiest. Well, oh man, star therapy is working with your best memories of your life, and of us have many of those. Simple example. This is something I do know something about: creative people and creative writing. I made uh, creative writer's block removal videos, a full session. So if you're suffering from writer's block, go and see it, and then you can remove your writer's block. And that's the same thing as with the physicist or the mathematician staring at their big wall of symbols, and nothing makes sense anymore, or they just don't know what's wrong with it and they can't fix it and it's not working. Same thing. And in the writer's block one, for example, we say, okay, remember a time when you were super inspired by another writer? And when did that happen, that you actually were so inspired that you went out and became a writer, started to write, wanted to write? And just tapping into that excitement that you can really feel in your body and go, oh, yeah, I remember. And then people start to smile and they start to sit up straighter and they breathe deeper. And their, as we would say, their energy flow is improving. And as that is improving, our abilities to solve problems gets better. The better the energy flow, the more the ideas flow, the more intelligence is accessible. I love that. The more all of a sudden, oh, your horizons sort of widen out as well. Rather than just staring down this little pinprick loophole at this one problem, it just widens out and you see the context, you see the connections. And I say, see, you
Mm.
understand the connections. And that's oftentimes where you go, oh, my energy mind just gave me the detective sitting in front of the wall with all the pictures and the pieces of paper
Mm.
and the red strings going from one person to another, sitting there staring at this night after night. They don't have to sit and stare night after night.
Mm.
They can just do some energy work, and then your ability to perceive patterns and understand them improves so much more. And it's just you. You don't have to change yourself. You just have to be a little bit happier, God damn it. Little bit more energy rich, little bit more empowered. And then our
Mm.
brains work in a whole new way. I love it. All
Yes.
right.
So I think that would be good. It's good to say that there are star therapists available through the GUE
Yep.
that can help all sorts of
Yeah.
interesting problems and finding solutions and
Yeah.
personal
If you
stuff,
are doing
company
any
stuff,
kind of
business
research you're
stuff.
totally stuck in, but for the love of God, don't remain stuck forever. Just at
Mm.
least give an energy session a try. And if you come away with a good idea, my God, what is a good idea worth? This
Mm.
is immeasurable in personal and
Mm.
possibly even monetary value. Who's to say? Yeah, we need more scientists to get their heads around the fact that we are actually really doing science here and that we are producing results that are replicable, which is
Mm.
really nice. And we're not in the
Yes.
pocket of Big Pharma. Woohoo.
Well, Sylvia, that's been a fascinating conversation, hasn't it? I was
Yeah,
unsure where science and sanity was going to go, but wow, I feel like we've shone the torch of inspection in every nook and cranny.
thank you that you asked that because Science and Sanity is the title of a book by Count Alfred Korzybski, which led me to answer the question of how do we deal with the eye of identity? And I created the aspects model to answer that question. So thank you, dear Count Alfred, for your book and for the title of this show. I had to acknowledge that. I'm really glad you mentioned that so that we could do that. And
Yeah.
I would like you, dear viewer, across time and space, leave in the comments what kind of invention you would like to see as soon as possible, right here, right now. Now, I definitely want the flying cars and faster than light travel. What is it that you would like to see as soon as possible? And you don't have to be all, oh, we need to cure cancer. You can be like, yeah, I want multicolored teddy bears that are really cute and make better pets than cats or dogs.
Yes. I want robots that can unload the dishwasher. That's what I want, and do the washing.
Oh, I
Make
think
beds.
I think you might be lucky in your lifetime there. I think that might just
when I'm
become possible.
when I'm 65, I will come and see you and either be happy or disappointed.
All right,
Well, thank
guys.
you
Thank you so
everybody
much.
for watching. Please do remember to hit the like button and the subscribe, and I'm looking
And
forward to
share.
reading all about and the share. I'm looking forward to reading about all your wonderful comments in the down below. So thank you.
And if you know a stuck scientist, send them to this video. Lots of love. I'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
Bye.